Hello to all the debt warriors listening, and welcome back to another episode of Millennial Debt Domination. I'm your host, Katie Fata. So to prepare everyone for the Halloween season, I thought we could talk about some spooky financial myths and legends for today's podcast episode. Sometimes finances can be considered scary and daunting, but they don't always have to be. In fact, you could believe a financial myth to be true, but it's really not. I'll be joined by Christina Roman, who is the Consumer Education and Advocacy Manager at Experian. Christina has a wealth of financial knowledge, and she joins me to debunk these financial myths. Some financial myths we'll be discussing relate to credit, retirement, emergency funds, investing, and much more. Now, let's get to busting these myths with Christina. Hi, Christina. Thanks for being on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. So today we're going to talk about some financial myths and legends to get into the spooky Halloween spirit, because there are so many crazy financial myths out there. So I thought we can bust them today to get in the mood. You ready to go?
Absolutely. I'm ready.
Okay, so the first myth I kind of found online is you should carry over a credit card balance to increase your credit score.
And I think this is one of the more common myths, and it stems from the fact that people believe having a balance will show activity on the card. They feel like if at the end of the month it shows a zero balance, then they may have not used the card. But when you leave a balance on the card month to month, you'll have to pay interest on that. So it'll cost you money, but it won't actually do anything to help your credit score. It'd be better if they made maybe some smaller monthly charges like groceries or gas and pay them off, because it'll show activity and it'll show proper credit management. Plus, I don't know about you, but sometimes you may forget, like if you've left a balance on and then you charge something else, then it kind of builds up the balance, which has the opposite effect you're trying to achieve. So it'll increase your overall utilization, which is your balance to limit ratio, which is actually the second biggest factor in your credit score. So it'll have the exact opposite effect. It may actually bring your credit down to carry a balance.
Right. Someone's limit might be $10,000, but you shouldn't be spending that much on your credit limit. You should probably I usually tell people to only spend about like 30% of your credit limit. But I like the point that you brought up before, just charging a grocery trip a month on your card and then paying it off. It shows activity, because that's also kind of the advice that was given to me when I first started using credit. I mean, I know it could be tempting to just, carry over a balance. It's fine. But I think that myth is definitely the opposite of the truth.
Yeah. And I think for that 30% range, that's like the highest that you want
the absolute highest.
If you can keep it even lower, that would be better.
Yeah. Make sure you're paying your bill off in full at the end of the month, because that's the way to go. Definitely. Because credit cards can help you boost your credit score if they're paid off in full at the end of the month and they're used properly. So still use your credit card, but don't carry over your balance. It will not increase your score. That's definitely not true. So kind of speaking of credit and credit scores, the next myth I've kind of found is you only have one credit score.
Yeah. So there are actually hundreds of credit scoring models and algorithms that create the different credit scores that we see. When you pull your credit report and score, or a lender pulls your credit report or score. And the different algorithms actually place different emphasis on the factors in your credit report, which is the reasons why the scores look different. And, another thing you have to remember is your credit report is a living document that is actively updated by your lenders throughout the month. So if you see one score one day and a different score the next day, it could be that a lender has reported something, maybe a higher utilization. So you have to remember that when you're looking at your credit score and you say, well, why is my credit score different here versus here, And also, this is why we emphasize the importance of monitoring your credit report over just focusing on that credit score, because it's the information that's in your credit report that feeds your credit score. So whenever you pull it from Experian, TransUnion, or Equifax, it's the information that's in there that's being used to create that score. So you really want to manage that credit report, and that will then change the score to either higher if that's what you're looking to achieve, or maintain it.
Yeah, you definitely want to be checking your credit report to just, to see if there's anything that's not right on there or anything. So you want to keep on top of that.
And I
Yeah.
do want to share also just quickly
Yeah,
that
go ahead.
because of COVID-19,
Yeah.
you can actually get your credit report for free every week from all three credit bureaus through annualcreditreport.com.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
awesome.
Yeah, it's a benefit because, they know that people want to be tracking what information is getting reported right now.
Mhm.
So if they go to annualcreditreport.com, they can pull their credit reports from each of the three bureaus.
Mhm.
It won't have their credit score because your credit score is not actually included in your credit report.
Right.
But if they wanted to access their credit score, Experian is also offering that for free. So they
Oh,
can go to
that's awesome.
Experian.com.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I'll put that in the description of the podcast so people can get that there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you do have more than one credit score. The numbers might be similar, but it might be, but it's going to be a different number. So you do have more than one credit score. So that myth that you only have one is not true, but it makes sense to believe that myth.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
Yeah,
you
well,
just have
and
to be
also because
careful.
you see, a dominant one is like FICO score. Everywhere you see
Mhm.
FICO. So people think there's only one, but they don't
Mhm.
even realize that there's several versions of
Exactly.
that FICO score. And there's actually for the different industries, like a mortgage score, there's an auto
Right.
score. So there's a lot of credit scores out there.
Yeah, definitely. I think kind of to stay on a little bit of a credit topic here. So the next myth I found is I don't need an emergency fund because I have credit cards.
Yeah. So I think everybody's heard that this credit card is for emergencies only. If you were like a
Mm.
teenager, maybe your parent
Yes.
got you a credit card and said, this is for emergencies only. And that's not like pizza on a Friday
Mhm.
night, it's if your car breaks down or whatnot. But I really firmly believe that establishing and building an emergency fund is actually a fundamental to your financial stability. When you rely heavily on credit cards during a time of financial crisis, you're creating debt for yourself. So you're kind of creating even more of a burden on top of a burden that you already have. Maybe you're able to fix that one burden, but now you have this debt that you're going to have to pay off. And if you can't pay it off within that month, then that's going to carry interest for you.
Right.
And it's also important to know that some people, if like you're relying on a credit card to handle all of your bills, if maybe you get fired or
Right.
lose your job unexpectedly,
Right.
some people or businesses don't accept credit card payments. Like, for example, your landlord, where I live currently, because we rent, they don't accept credit card payments for rent. So how would you be able to pay that if you didn't have an account? And some credit cards do offer cash advance options, but I really heavily emphasize not to take advantage of that option if you can avoid it at all costs, just because it's such a high interest rate that you're taking on when you pull out cash from your credit card.
Yeah,
So
that's a good point.
yeah, it's really important if you can build an emergency fund to really start that, even if you have to start small,
Right.
um, and work your way up. Set aside $25 from a check. Some people are nervous that they can't build it, but set aside that very small amount each month. If you get paid twice and you can set aside $50 a month,
Mhm.
then you can build it, and that's just going to get momentum going for you.
Right. I normally kind of say the general rule of thumb is to save at least 6 months worth of living
Yes.
expenses. That will be like
Mm-hmm.
the end goal. But if you can't do that immediately, yeah, just put 25, maybe every paycheck to start. But once you start building it, kind of work your way to 6 months worth. And, if you listen to this podcast, I'm pro emergency fund. I feel like I talk about them
Mm-hmm.
all the time. You always need an emergency fund. And I think a great example of why you need one you brought up is job loss because
Yes.
let's say you lose your job, it could be longer than you think to get until you get a new one, and you don't want to rely on those credit cards at all.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, because like even for COVID, if you think about it,
right.
COVID's going into the seventh month. So even that
Yeah.
3 to 6 months cushion that you had, like that would be great to get you through these at least first 6 months. If you had to rely on credit cards, could it hold you over that
Mhm.
amount of time? But I also wanted to say that, like, you do have to, like, we in the industry, like we promote it, but I think also you have to kind of put yourself in the shoe of the consumer. If they only had a credit card, if they were only relying on it and they had to use it to feed their families or provide the necessities right now,
Mhm.
you do what you have to do. And
Right.
a lot of people are in that situation. And it's important to know that if you have to do that and you have to take on the debt, that once you get back on your feet and you can start paying off that debt, you're going to rehabilitate your credit. So it is important to know that too. Like if they did rely on that emergency credit card to get them through a situation and you have to use it, then you have to use it. But just know that, make a plan. If you raise up debt, make a plan and try to get out of it, as soon as you possibly can, and that will improve your scores over time.
Yeah, and then once you're out of that debt, then you can start making your emergency fund because
Exactly. Yes.
you might think that this will never happen to me, but you kind of mentioned the current situation we're in now. It's like we never thought it would have thought this would have happened, but you
No.
never know.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it felt like it was one week to the next, all of a sudden
Mhm.
shut down. And some
Right.
people remained shut down the whole time. Some people came back at a limited capacity.
Mhm.
So it's important to just have those tools in your back pocket for these kind of situations.
Right. So speaking of an emergency savings, and the next myth I found is a savings account is a good place for your emergency fund.
Yeah, so I think any way you get started is great. But if you're like me, and you see that amount in a savings account that you actually see every day, it can be
Right.
tempting to say like, well, I don't have an emergency right now. I could dip into
Mhm.
that for a little something. And I'm being perfectly honest because there's
Right.
times where I've thought like, I don't have anything going on. I could
Right.
buy something with that. So it almost helps to find maybe an online account or somewhere else that you don't have easy access to. And I recommend maybe saving like $500 to $1,000 for immediate emergencies
Mhm.
in your actual savings account. But if you're continuing to build that account, find a high yield account, something that will return more
Right.
than your current savings account would, because then you're growing your money as you're building that savings account. It just sometimes takes a little bit longer to get access to it. That's why I say have that $500 to $1,000 there, for an immediate emergency if you need something that very day. But if it's an emergency that can wait a couple of days for you to get the funds over to your account, there's a lot of accounts online that offer a little bit more of an interest rate than your current savings account may.
Mhm.
Some other options are CDs, and I'm not talking about compact discs,
Yeah.
but certificates of
Yeah.
deposit, that's an option, maybe through your bank or money market accounts.
Yeah.
You just have to be aware of how much you need to keep in that account. So do your research on that, and talk to your bank or credit union about any options they may have for building that emergency fund.
Right. No, definitely. And I think a lot of people believe that their savings account is their emergency fund.
Yes.
But it shouldn't be. I think your
Mm-mm.
emergency savings should be kept separately from your regular financial savings. And you mentioned some great options, a money market account, high yield savings account, CDs. Those are great options for an emergency fund. So yeah, I actually have a blog post on Navicore's site about all the emergency savings where you can keep them. So I'll put that in the description down below if you're
Mm-hmm.
interested in looking at that. So another myth I found is I don't earn enough to save.
Yep. Yeah, and this is a hard one, especially when you're in it. I've experienced times where, when I was a lot younger and I had a job right out of college that didn't pay very much, I wasn't even making it paycheck to paycheck. I was paycheck to the Tuesday before paycheck. So the thought of saving anything just seemed absurd to me. So let me kind of share what helped me, and
Mhm.
maybe it'll help a listener. But first, I started small. So when you research emergency funds, like you said, some people advocate 3 to 6 months of emergency funds, and that can seem like a lot. So my recommendation is to start small, like I mentioned before, save a little bit from each check and kind of build that momentum. If you can save 50 a month, that's $600 at the end of the year, and that's a great start. And as you maybe move up in your career, or if you can examine your cash flow, then you can start to develop a budget that will allow you to kind of make to see how much you can realistically save.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I did when I was trying to figure out how much I could save each month was I printed out all of my bank and credit card statements, and I looked at how much money I make each month and where it's going. You know, get a realistic look at where your money is going. So this is called looking at like your cash flow. And so you look at what are your consistent bills, what is your average grocery and gas spending, and you create a budget that includes those bills, your groceries, your gas, and any other necessities. And a keyword is necessities. You know, that doesn't include like your fun money. That'll be separate.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look this over, it might surprise you where you actually spend some of your money. See if there's anywhere that you can cut it. Is there any excess spending that you have? Can you get rid of a subscription? Some people cut the cord and then they sign up for 1 million subscriptions, which actually ends up costing just as much as like a cable subscription would have cost. So
Mm-hmm.
is there anywhere that you have an extra subscription that you could cancel out? Maybe having a difficult conversation with family members and friends about your goal of saving, and how like maybe you're not going to be able to go out as much, but this is really important for your financial stability.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get paid, pay your bills, figure out if there's anything else that you could put in that savings account, and put that as a line item in your budget. And we call that pay yourself first.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So when you get your check, pay yourself first. Make that like a bill almost every month. And then put that money in account. That way you're not even really thinking about it. You already know it goes straight to that. Just like you would pay your internet bill or your rent or your mortgage, you know, it's just an automatic thing that happens. And when you pay yourself first, you're really valuing yourself, your financial stability, your mental health, because I think financial stress creates a burden on your mental health. So all of these go toward just making you more stable as a whole person.
Paying yourself first is a great motto for your savings, because you know, and you kind of mentioned, kind of set up like an automatic payment, make it like a bill, make money going into your savings account important, make it a priority. And you know, over time you won't even realize the amount is gone from your regular account into your savings.
Yes.
So yeah, that it helps by making the payments automatic. You'll be building your savings and you won't even be thinking twice about it.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think, yeah. So don't think you don't earn enough to save, because you even just saving a little bit is better than saving nothing at all.
Absolutely. So. Just try to challenge yourself to do $25, if not $30 from each paycheck. I mean, that's a really good chunk at the end of the year if you can do it.
Yeah. So I think that we could kind of go into the next myth, which is you need a lot of money to invest.
Yeah, investing can seem pretty daunting, but there are simple ways to get started. One example is contributing to your retirement savings plan provided by your employer.
Yep.
That is a way of investing. Also, if you work for a company that maybe offers a share save program where you can buy like employee stock options, Experian does that for us. They offer that option, so that's one way to invest in that's also like an extra savings account that you can have. Some company, or you know, there's a lot of also apps on the marketplace that will allow you to get in at a pretty low cost. So there's a lot of ways to get started. You can even go to your bank or credit union and ask if there is an investing person that you can talk to, or a professional. I recommend talking to a financial professional that can help you get started there, but it's not often as expensive as you may think it is.
Yeah. And you mentioned kind of like your company's 401k. That's a great way to start investing, because you know you're gonna that's gonna be investing in your financial future and your retirement. And you know, it's not as complicated as others, and you know you're going to be positively impacting your financial future. So investing can be a confusing financial topic. So it's not uncommon for there to be like a financial myth about investing. So you don't need a lot of money to invest, but investing is a great tool. So we kind of talked about, investing in your company's 401k or any type of investing in retirement. So another myth I kind of have related about retirement is I'm young, I don't need to think about retirement.
Yeah. So in the same way that parents talk to their kids about getting a job, starting a family, buying a house, they, as you're growing up, maybe they set those ideas in your head. I think they should talk to them about the importance of saving for retirement.
Yes,
Talk to
I
them
agree.
about talk to them about 401ks or IRAs and the benefit of compound interest. Because most young people don't think they don't see themselves working forever. And telling them they may have to if they don't establish a retirement savings account could create that sense of urgency for them. One of the biggest benefits of starting your retirement account early is the amount of time you're allowing your money to grow through compound earnings. So another thing I want to say is, some parents, they do talk to their kids about goals, but if you are that 20-something-year-old listening to this podcast and your parents never really talk to you about money and saving or life goals, let us be the ones that tell you that if you have an option to save in your 401k, or maybe it's a 403b if you're a teacher or you work for the government, take advantage of it. In fact, if you're just leaving college and you're starting your job search, look for companies that offer medical and some kind of retirement savings option. And if they offer a match, that's even better, because many companies will advertise this on the bottom of job postings to entice you to apply for the job. And you can choose how much you want to contribute to this account if you have access to one, and that money is taken out pre-tax, which reduces your overall taxable income. And this may sound like a lot of words that a lot of people don't understand, but it's really beneficial to you.
No, I know. It definitely is.
Yeah. And I mentioned a company match. And this is huge because that means that your company is willing to invest in your retirement. So you want to read the fine print, but I can say, like, for example, Experian, after 30 days, you can start investing in your 401k and they'll match you dollar for dollar up to a certain percentage. And they don't require you to work for them for a certain amount of time to be fully vested in your 401k. You get it right away as you contribute. Whereas other companies, they may only vest 50%, but either way, it's an investment in your future, and that's important. They may require you to work for them a little bit longer before you're fully vested. But all of this is going to go a long way toward helping you grow your retirement savings.
Right. No, definitely. And, many young people believe they don't need to save for retirement because they believe they only need to start saving when they're kind of older, which is definitely not true. I think the younger you save, the better. And, you don't want to work forever, guys.
No.
Exactly.
No, and if you wait till you're older,
then
you're going to actually have to contribute more of your check, because now you're just playing catch up to try to get you on track to the ultimate goal that you want to achieve with your retirement savings. So you're actually going to have to contribute more. If you contribute earlier and you just contribute a steady amount, as you get older, you're not going to have to bump that up super high to just catch up to where you want to be.
Right. Talking about getting a late start, so saving for your retirement. Another myth I found is it's too late to save for retirement. Trying to save for one now would seem daunting. So this would be for the people that kind of thought they were maybe too young and now they're older and now they don't know if they can save.
It's never too late in any aspect of life. It's never too late. You may have to be a little bit more aggressive, as I mentioned, with your saving, but I recommend talking to a financial professional and really going through the possibilities to help you get on track. I think a common misconception is you have to be wealthy to talk to a financial advisor, and that's not true. See if your workplace offers a financial advisor benefit. Maybe they give you, or they have a discount on somebody that you can work with. Some companies do that for you. Talk to your friends and family members and see if, or talk to your financial institution and see if there's somebody that you can talk to about getting that retirement on track. They they can help you figure out how much from your check you should be putting in your retirement savings to really get on track for your retirement goal.
Yeah, like you mentioned earlier, it's never too late to save for retirement. So that part's the myth, but you are going to have to work a little bit harder to save. So definitely speak to a professional. Like you said, that's some great advice. You know, if you start saving later, you might have to push back your retirement a little bit or alter the style of retirement you were thinking. But having
Yeah,
something saved is better than having nothing saved. It's kind of how we mentioned earlier.
absolutely.
Yeah, but it's definitely never too late to save for retirement, and don't think of it as something daunting if you are starting to save later in life. So that's definitely another myth that's not necessarily true. So another one I kind of found is I have enough money in my account, so I don't need to budget. We kind of touched on a little bit of budgeting earlier, but we could go into more detail here.
Yeah. It's always a great feeling to have money in your account and to be
Hmm.
worry free about your finances. But are you getting any closer to your goals? In my opinion, to say that you don't need a budget because you have money in your account is like saying, I got the job, so it's cool to do the bare minimum.
Hmm.
But if you want to progress in your career and maximize your earning potential, complacency really is the killer of advancement. So the benefit of having a budget is that it puts your money to work for you. You're giving your money a guide. It's like the map to your overall goals. So you pay your bills, you save amount for this, you save an amount for that, you set these small goals, you set these bigger goals, and your budget is what actually helps to get you there.
Hmm.
So that's why it's important to have that.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And it's actually the more money you have in your account, the more important it is to budget. This is
Yes.
because without a budget in place, someone who has a large amount in their bank account can easily spend their way into debt without properly managing their finances.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You see
Yeah,
it there, you see it, you spend it,
right.
rather than saying, well, wait a minute, this is actually going to help me save for my house. This is
Hmm.
going to help me save for this car I want or this trip I want to go on.
Yeah.
If your value is to go on to travel the world,
Mhm.
then, set a travel budget. Set a house budget. Set these little mini budgets that you could put money toward, and then that will allow you to do those things without having a financial burden
Yeah.
placed on you. Maybe if you were to put that trip on a credit card, or you know put something else on a credit card, then you're creating a financial burden for yourself just to do something you enjoy, rather than planning for it, budgeting for it, and putting money toward it and going out there worry free.
That's a good idea to make smaller budget categories within your budget, like for travel, for a car, for something. That
Hmm.
kind of holds you accountable and, hold and makes you responsible for your money choices. So that's also a
Yeah.
good idea because a lot of people do just charge their trips on credit cards. So I think having a separate budget for that is a good idea. So,
Yeah, because then when you get back, it was a fun vacation, but now you're gonna have to pay that debt
right.
off.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, even if you think you have enough money in your account, you still need to budget. So don't think that you don't have to just because of that. So kind of the last myth I found, which is kind of different than anything we talked about, is owning is better than renting or vice versa.
yeah, and to own or to rent, I feel like that's such a personal choice.
It
And
is.
I
It's different.
say,
Yeah.
yeah, I personally say do what makes you the happiest.
Hmm.
So, some people would say that you should own a car and a house, and that renting is throwing money away. But other people are perfectly happy renting in a neighborhood they enjoy or that they can afford, and not having to deal with the maintenance of ownership. Or maybe they're the kind of person that likes to have the latest model of car. So for them, it makes sense to lease.
Right.
I personally will say that I value the idea of homeownership, but I've never let anyone rush me.
Hmm.
Lately, my husband and I mentioned that we rent. So we rented in a neighborhood that's actually pretty low cost,
Hmm.
that allows us to then save more for our down payment. Um, I think what's worse than grappling over the idea of ownership versus renting is to let somebody pressure you into making a choice that is detrimental to your financial future. So I say do what makes you the happiest. If you choose to rent, if you choose to rent, maybe because you want to save money and build your credit score, renting might also be a good way to build your credit score, because your rent could be reported to Experian. That will then help you to improve your credit score. You have to see if your landlord offers this option, but that's another really good way to build your credit score if you're renting. And then you go at your own pace, you build your credit, you stack your cash, and then one day you can, purchase that house if you choose to do that, or you can purchase that car if you want to purchase a car. So it's really personal.
Right. It's different for every person, but don't like let anyone make you think that one is better than go at your own speed.
Yeah, do things on your own timeline. Exactly what you said.
Yeah. So, and you also have to think about your financial state and everything like that. So definitely take everything into account before you make a decision about making a big move, or, if you're happy renting, that's fine too. So I guess this myth is kind of dependent on, we're not like owning is definitely not, it's different for everyone. So people do think owning is better than renting, or, vice versa. So it's definitely all just up to your finances and your financial state and your personal life too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So just do what makes you the happiest and what's best for your financial health.
Yeah, I think that's true. And kind of with that kind of wraps up all the myths. I found there are definitely more financial myths out there, but we could have done like 10 parts to this podcast if I went through every single one I found. So I think these ones are definitely good and they relate to millennials. So thank you, Christina, for being here and helping me debunk these myths.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Katie. I was really excited to be invited on this podcast.
Thank you so much for being here. I hope now finances seem less daunting to you. I had a fun time discussing these myths with Christina, and I think we gave some perspective as to why they weren't true. One takeaway here is to research a financial topic before you believe the first thing you read about it. You could have believed a financial myth all along and it turns out not to be true. Remember, never carry over a credit balance, always plan for emergencies, and it's never too early or too late to start saving for retirement. We have some previous podcast episodes that go into more detail about some of these financial myths, so I'll link those in the description of this episode. Don't let your finances scare you this spooky season. And with that being said, this wraps up another episode of Millennial Debt Domination. Please subscribe to the podcast wherever you're currently listening. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review us there. Thanks for listening, Millennials, Gen Zers, and everyone else. And enjoy the remainder of your spooky season. Bye.